everyone. My name is Tori Singer. I'm a reporter for MBA Chic. We are very, very pleased and honored to be joined today by Jackie Cromity. She's an MBA senior manager at Cisco and the founder of Survivor Friendly. Jackie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, no, thank you, Tori, for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Jackie, we have a lot of ground to cover today, but I want to start out with a little bit of background on you, and then we're going to really launch into Survivor Friendly. You currently serve as senior manager at Cisco, and I know that you oversee other managers as part of a global team, which comes with a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility. But I wanted to focus on how you received your initial breast cancer diagnosis back in 2013. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know that that was occurring after your annual visit and your doctor said everything was fine. You actually discovered the cancer yourself. I'd love
Mhm.
if you could speak to this. I think it's so important for other women to understand your journey.
Oh, absolutely. So I was always had a heightened awareness of breast cancer. So in my 20s, because I was so young, I wasn't eligible for mammograms. So I was already getting ultrasounds every year at Mayo Clinic when I was living in Minnesota. When I came to North Carolina, it was a different requirement. They said every 2 years because I have never had cancer prior, even though I had a history in my family because my mom died of breast cancer when I was 8 years old. So I went to the doctor for my typical annual for insurance, and they did a self check. Said I didn't need to get an ultrasound because it was in between those 2 years. They checked everything and said they didn't feel anything, and I had a clean bill of health. 30 days later, can't tell you why. I was in the shower and did a self check, and I felt something that just didn't sit right with me. And I told my husband about it, but I said, it can't be nothing. I just saw the doctor. It could be just, maybe the density of my breast tissue. So I paid no attention to it. And honestly, I just felt that God was just telling me something wasn't right. And so that led me to go get a mammogram. And I'll tell you, I contacted the radiologist and said, hey, I want to get a mammogram. I think I felt something. And do you not know they wouldn't schedule me because they said a diagnostic mammogram had to be written by a doctor. You had to be referred to by a doctor. So I said, okay, I tell you what, just give me a regular mammogram. So that's what he did. And then not even, 24 hours later, I get a phone call and they said they saw two what looked to be cancerous tumors and I need to do a biopsy. And so I proceeded, got the biopsy, and lo and behold, I was between stage 3 and 4, triple negative breast cancer, and I was diagnosed with cancer. So that's how I found out. It was through me doing self checks, and it resulted into me finding out that I had breast cancer.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important, that message of personal advocacy. I mean, you hear it all the time, you feel it day to day, but your story is a perfect example of you,
Oh,
you felt something was wrong and you followed up and you pursued that.
Oh, absolutely. You have to. You have to be your advocate. And through my 10-year journey with cancer, I was my advocate. And when I remember when I got the diagnosis, I called my dad. I told my husband, he prayed with me and said, everything's gonna be all right. We're gonna be with you. And then I went into fight mode, literally. I dried those tears up and like, look, okay, I'm ready to fight this thing. And I said to myself, not only was I gonna fight the cancer, but I'm going to fight not changing my lifestyle. And I made a decision that was for me. That's not for everybody, but for me, I wanted to continue to work. And so I remember I kind of formed my own oncology team because remember I had just not too long ago got here in North Carolina, and I didn't have a medical team that I could just turn to. And so literally I had to go on the internet, do some research, and when I informed my manager at the time at Cisco, she informed me she had breast cancer before and referred me to her oncologist. And I never forget, I tried to call her because she was really well known in her research in young women having breast cancer. And so I really wanted her. And but they said she was booked up all the way into the next year. And so I was not going to give up. I contacted her nurse practitioner, told her my story, and they got me in. And lo and behold, she became my oncologist, medical oncologist. I got Dr. Toner. She was an excellent surgeon, and the rest is history. I proceeded with getting a lumpectomy, and started my chemo, treatment, which included very potent Taxol. And I tell you, that was some strong chemo. But my first time that I got my treatment, I'll never forget. I called Duke and I said, listen, I need to go talk to an immunization specialist so that I can get the right immunization shots that won't counter the medicine because I need to go to India. And they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, listen, I worked a couple of years, convincing the management staff on a very important project that I needed buy-in for and funding. And I need to get to India. And lo and behold, after my first treatment, I went on a plane and went to India. And I tell you, it definitely had its challenges, obviously, having chemo and then going on in another country, but it was very empowering because again, I was refusing to allow chemo to conquer my life. And I'll tell you, I remember when I was done with all of my treatments, did radiation every day for about 45 days, and completed everything. That's when I informed my team that I was sick because I didn't want a lot of phone calls. I didn't want anybody to treat me differently. I didn't want, the long faces because I knew within myself that I was going to beat this with the Lord's help. And I was encouraged that, with the right medical staff, with my family on my side, that everything was going to be all right. And I'll never forget when I finished my last treatment, I was walking out the door and a nurse called me back and said, Jackie, come here. And she handed me it was like a dollar store, like a little picture, like somebody, I don't know, crafted, little handcrafted, something that somebody made from dollar store. It was in a picture frame. And it was an inspirational saying. I think I broke down in that moment. And I said, we have got to create this same sort of experience for somebody else to help them when they are going through this sort of treatment and being diagnosed with cancer. And that started the thought process behind Survivor Friendly. But I'll tell you what really drove the initial nonprofit and why I started the entire mission after everything I just explained to you. And God knows I'm missing out a lot of details, right? Because I don't have the time. But I never forget, I finally was able to get my nails done. And because during treatment, your immune system is compromised. So you cannot go and go out and get those type of services. And so I'll never forget, I went to the nail shop, sat down, and I noticed the lady was hesitant in actually doing my nails. Now, mind you, a lot of people are aware of the side effects of chemotherapy and other, cancer treatments. I thought I was well aware, well versed, just based on my family history. And I also aforementioned my mom passing away, but also my father had, prostatic cancer for 24 years. And he recently passed away. He had pancreatic cancer, elevated pancreatic cancer during the pandemic. But nevertheless, so I was kind of familiar with, right, the side effects, cancer, just because of my family history. I didn't know though that my nails would turn jet black. Had no clue. I knew about the wig because that was the first thing I got done was getting me a wig done when I was going through my treatment. But I didn't even think about my eyebrows, eyelashes changing, getting swole because of all of the medicine, the new lashes shots that you had to take after your chemo treatment just to get your blood, the good blood cells, coming back that the chemo, actually destroyed. So kind of going through all of those different side effects all simultaneously, I was ready for that moment of, oasis, right? And I sit down, I'm ready to get my nails done. She was hesitant, and then I realized she don't know why my nails are black, and she may think this is a fungus, or she may think this is contagious. So here I am in a nail shop disclosing my personal information to a stranger. And I have to tell you, Tori, that moment, I think, out of all of that journey I just told you I went through, and it had its moments, but overall, I was strengthened through it. And I was positive through it. And I feel like the Lord gave me the strength to go through it. But that moment, I felt very small. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so unfair. Why am I feeling embarrassed after fighting for my life? And I'm sitting here getting my nails done, and I'm sitting in the marketplace embarrassed. And lo and behold, that's what birthed the Survivor Friendly initiative.
Wow. Well, you have so much to share, and I appreciate that context. That experience specifically, I wanted to cover with you, that the nail experience, because I know that was a moment of self-care and celebration, and it kind of was squashed in that instance of you feeling small. And I know you don't want other women or men who have breast cancer, of course, to experience that feeling that you felt. So I know that was one of your inspirations behind Survivor Friendly. So you founded Survivor Friendly in 2018,
Mhm.
and I wanted you to kind of delve into for our audience. I know you did a research project at NC State, and you kind of wanted to
Yeah.
gauge, are other women experiencing some of the difficulties finding items after their diagnosis and insurance um, headaches as you were experiencing, and you wanted to see what other women were experiencing, and they were experiencing very similar experiences as you were. So talk about that and how Survivor Friendly really came to fruition then in 2018.
Yeah, absolutely. So, once we started the initiative, we actually already had a 501(c)(3), so we started a project under it called Survivor Friendly. And the idea was to educate the marketplace on the side effects that chemo treatment can, or just cancer treatment, that one can experience, so that when people come into their place of business, or when they go back and disseminate back into the employment, they will it will take out that unconscious shock factor that sometimes people have when they see people that look a little different. And so that was the purpose. So we was going to create a little emblem, give them to businesses, and then create a Rolodex of businesses that's survivor friendly that people can come and visit. Also, what was interesting to me was, as I was kind of going back, trying to get back to a life of normalcy, I realized insurance didn't cover a lot of things. So, for instance, when I mentioned that my eyebrows was not growing back, so I went and got a bottle of Latisse and Vitalash, and those bottles are over $100 something. And then I all of a sudden start wearing makeup, which I wasn't accustomed to doing because I was trying to supplement again these things that I have lost, and that started adding up. Right now, luckily, I was still working and I could afford it, but I knew a lot of people couldn't. So we started stuffing bags with those essentials that was needed, and then we distributed them to different cancer centers all across the United States. We still do that today. And that is what we've been doing for a number of years, over 5 years, with Survivor Friendly. Now, how we evolved to where we are today was, when I was clinically declared cancer free from my chemo treatment and my lumpectomy. I decided to get a breast reduction so that I can be even, to have some symmetric, be symmetric in my chest area where I originally had the lumpectomy, where they remove tissue and therefore it reduces your breast size. I want to have some symmetry. So I went to a plastic surgeon to have that done. My oncology team said, wait a minute, before you do that, let us check you. And they checked me, clean bill of health. Lo and behold, when the plastic surgeon did the surgery, reduced the breast that I didn't have cancer in before to match the one that I did. He, because of my history, sent it off to a lab just to make sure everything was okay. And lo and behold, it came back cancer. That story within itself is a lot of miracles that I'll skip and fast forward through. But what I will say is, I wound up getting a double mastectomy and implants put in at the same surgery. Went through that journey. What I found that was interesting was the same process and fight that I had with insurance to not only get what they call gap exceptions, and that is when you can't find a provider within 30 miles within your house. And that was the rules for my provider. They're all different. Insurance have different rules. But for my particular insurance provider, within 30 miles, you can get what they call a gap exception, find somebody that offered the services, and they would treat them as an in-network provider. Well, I was frustrated because I had a fight with insurance to continue to go through that process, and then find somebody while trying to battle through getting back to my health. Right? Okay, cool. Still continue to move on with life, and at that time, I decided to go back. I was actually in the process of getting my MBA. I always had a knack for business. Been in corporate for over 22 years. I've always did side, different businesses, from real estate to retail shops and things of that nature. So I've always had an interest in business, even in my career. So I wanted to enhance that by getting an MBA, and developing a little bit more awareness around finances, understanding the nomenclature, just a number of things I want to get from that. So I was going through my MBA while all this was happening, by the way, and still working, and still, taking my children and stuff to work, and excuse me, to school. And so I went through that surgery. Well, we get towards the end of the surgery, and I did a self-check. Remind you, I had implants in. Again, declared cancer free, and they found tumors actually in both breasts when they took it out and took it to the lab, afterwards. And then, obviously they took out my lymph nodes. So then I was declared, cancer free, and, went on through that process, and I was this close to being done. I did a self check. felt something that didn't feel right, called my doctor. They was very nonchalant about it because it was like, hey, you don't have breasts, so it's probably just from the surgery. Well, lo and behold, I went to the doctor. They did all of the tests, came back yet another tumor, and this time it metastasized to my lymph nodes. Had to have yet another double mastectomy, and went through chemo again. And this time I couldn't finish my chemo because my organs was shutting down for various reasons, and so they had to stop it and then just perform the surgery. But luckily, or not luckily, praise the Lord, there was no cancer found when they took the areas out, both my lymph nodes and my tumors. But this is how Survivor Friendly evolved. Because when that happened, now I find myself in a place where I have to get prosthesis because I couldn't get implants in at that time, right? I just had them taken out. And I didn't know prosthesis, what? you know, when you go through cancer, excuse me, when you go through cancer, they give you this book about this thick, right, of all these resources, and then all this information flying at you. And I'm pretty good about absorbing information, but listen, you're gonna. It's not but so much you can retain. And at that point, when you're hurting and you got pain and you got all this other stuff, that stuff is going one ear and out the other, right? And you're gonna retain only what you need for that moment.
Right.
So here I am going to try to find a boutique that has these prostheses. I walk in, right? It was extremely quick. Right? It was almost like, okay, what bra do you want? Here's your prosthesis. And quick tape. Okay, you want these? And here I am with two pink, you know, prosthesis, right? And a couple of bras. And I go home. Okay. And I figured, oh man, this is life now, right? Trying to adjust to that. And I thought to myself, my gosh, this is so unfair, right? There has got to be, right? I have pretty good insurance. I'm not rich, but I got a couple of coins that I can buy what I need. And even that didn't make a difference. There was no resources for me. And I'll never forget, I was in a mirror one day and I had a tank top on. And I don't like to wear my prosthesis in the pockets. And the pockets is just sewn into the bra so they can hold the prosthesis in place. And I don't have it in the pockets. And I just happened to be in the bathroom and noticed my prosthesis was sticking out. Nobody told me. So I said, I don't have any friends. But here I am, a pink prosthesis sticking out of my chest. And I'm walking around like this. So this is crazy. So I went to NC State. I was in my last year of school, or actually last semester. And in that semester, I had to do a research problem. So I convinced my colleagues at the time, can we do a research project and just find out, here's my experience. Are other people experiencing this? And we did. We interviewed over 100 women. And you would literally wouldn't believe the stories of women, all walks of life, all economical backgrounds, not just ethnicity. Because at first I thought it was just about me being a Black woman and couldn't find something that looked like me. But when we got the data back from our research, it was overwhelming. Like 99% of the respondents said that not only couldn't they find what they needed, they felt the insurance was hard to navigate and they couldn't find the resources they needed. But 98% of the respondents were white women. And I said, this is not an ethnicity issue, even though you can argue that, obviously if it's bad for the greater, I mean, the whole, every ethnicity, which including, white women, then it's even worse for those who are in a minority, right? But this was a pervasive issue. This is a big problem. So that's when I started doing research into the DME and trying to understand, interviewing different boutiques. And what I noticed is when the pandemic hit, there were several problems. Number one, a lot of women who were doing this type of service were aging out. And number two, they didn't have the finances to withstand what was happening in the pandemic. So shops were closing. And I said, oh my gosh, we have to do something. Where are these women going to go? Are they going to go to CVS and go look at a magazine and say, give me this? Are they going to call an 800 number and order up a pair of tatas? I was like, this cannot happen. So we, in a leap of faith, purchased a building in Cary. My sidekick, Stacy, you probably seen a lot of our videos. She helped me. We sat down. We put together the business plans. We worked with insurance. We went through all the accreditations. I went and became CMF certified, went through BOC accreditation, and we did all that. And by January, February timeframe, from October to February, we was a full-fledged licensed DME, Board of Pharmacy, North Carolina Board of Pharmacy licensed DME, ACHC certified. And we were able to help women come in, provide an environment that not only will educate women, but also give them the opportunity to have variety. Despite the ceiling that we had to dance around that insurance put on us as a result of these contractor rates. And in every one of our facilities, we have what we call the blessing room. So people, even if they don't have insurance, I made it my duty that I said, if anybody walks through those doors, they will be serviced. And that's what we do with our partnership with Pretty in Pink. Every facility, we started out with one, and now we're in 6 locations across North Carolina, including Duke Cancer Centers in both Raleigh and Durham. We go to Novant Health in Thomasville once a month, and then we have our own facilities that we own in both Cary, Shelby, and Winston. And I get calls every day from other states and other places where they have oasis that exists where there's no place for people to go that have the experience that I have. So that is how we evolved. Still have our foundation and we still give, but we create a safe place for women to come and to feel whole again, because it is definitely a journey and it's something that words cannot describe. You have to experience it. And so a lot of our people that's in our staff have been survivors themselves. So they add that extra touch to the conversation, and they help bring people through that process.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's you need to have your life needs to be made into a movie one of these days. And I don't know how I'll help you get there some way, but I
Yeah.
wanted to I'm so inspired. I know our audience will be as well. Just your fighting spirit. I know you have a very strong faith as well. I wanted to kind of delve a little bit into, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but
Sure.
I wanted to point out how important it was that you were authentic with your manager. Initially, going back to your initial diagnosis, you brought that information, you were forthcoming with something very personal, and that
Mhm.
wound up resulting in you getting a recommendation for an oncologist that wound up being integral to fighting this, which is, I think, a really important message. Can you talk about pursuing your MBA during the midst of now after you had been diagnosed again and you're pursuing your MBA, you're working full time, you're taking care of your family. How did your MBA help you to further fuel that entrepreneurial spirit that you had?
Oh,
Talk about that.
absolutely. So, like I said, I had a lot of experience just on the job training, right? Setting up EBOs and things like that at IBM and at Cisco. So I have learned a lot just on my job. But what the MBA brought to the table was how to do research, how to network, how to bring all that information together and create a business and create a thriving business. And my conversation with my manager was very strategic, and I was very open and honest and said, look, I don't want my job to change. I don't want you to tell anybody. I gave her my parameters. I don't want it announced. Don't hold back anything. Treat me like you do anybody else. That was important to me. And I think that communication and being upfront and honest is important. I realize everybody don't have that. There's number of people that have actually lost their job as a result of having to go to treatment and stuff. So I find that again, it's just a matter of educating the marketplace. I think the MBA was extremely important because, like I said, it gave me the tools to help navigate a very different, complex global environment, right? That we have to work through, from contract negotiation to logistics, right? Of things that we have to get shipped, how to, manage your customer base, how do you target your messaging and your marketing, just all those different components that when you work in a corporate environment, you normally have people who wear different hats to help bring all that together. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you wear all those hats because you don't normally have the budget to bring all those people together. So I think the MBA helped prepare me for that. And then they were very supportive, right? I did not take any kind of sabbatical except for one semester I had to sit out. And then in my job, I didn't take a sabbatical except for 1 month because one of the side effects of chemotherapy is chemo brain. And I always said to myself that if I could not produce, then I would not, go to work, right? And I was forgetting things. And it is a real side effect, people. It is not, a fairy tale. I was literally forgetting things. So I would say that is how it really helped me. And even to this day, we just recently did a research project with NC State on how we could do more virtual fittings for people who don't have a boutique close to them, but we can get the precision um, in um, and the measurements, so we make sure that we send them the right garment. So again, I'm forever indebted to NC State, and the process of research is really, really important. Gut is great, but you got to have data to back it up, right? So yeah, that's probably the answer I'll give for that.
So important, and a good takeaway for anyone listening who's maybe thinking about pursuing it, or on the fence, but I appreciate that. So I want to cover a couple more points before our time runs out.
Sure.
I know that, Jackie, you're very aware of pink washing, and I know you're
Yes.
very aware of advocating for education beyond just Breast Cancer Awareness Month, because
Yes.
it doesn't discriminate what month you might find out that this is something that's a part of your life, right? So what is your message to women out there, or men,
Yeah.
during Breast Cancer Awareness Month and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is make sure that, health is wealth. I heard that saying recently, and, I'm really sticking at the heart, not just with breast cancer, but my health overall. But make sure you're doing your self checks. I'll tell you, out of the 3 times that I was diagnosed, I found 2 of them. And my plastic surgeon found the second one. So the MRI missed it, the mammogram missed it, and the professionals that did perform the checks, they missed it. So you are the best detector. Be your own advocate. Despite me telling you 6 tumors that I have been able to survive, talking to you today, I recently, last year, and I did a video on this where I felt something that didn't feel right. Do you not know I had a hard time getting a doctor appointment with my oncologist, because they didn't think, right, that it was critical or urgent, and I had to call somebody that knew somebody to get me in, so that I could just be seen. So I would say the takeaways for me is, definitely do your self checks. Make sure you do your mammograms. I know, that machine sometimes push a little tatas a little tight and they hurt, but it's worth it because your survival rate goes up significantly if your breast cancer is found early. And then be an advocate, right? Do your homework. And if you can't understand some of the terminology, and some of the information your doctors are giving you, bring in a friend, bring in a family member. Google, right? Google is my best friend. Go open a book. There's a lot of good literature and books that you can read that really break down terminology in layman's terms so you can understand, right? And then the last thing is, if you're a woman who is faced with cancer, um, make sure you know what your options are before you rush into a decision. Cancer doesn't grow overnight, right? If you go and look at all the studies and the data, you can go talk to your oncologist about this. It typically takes a while for it to grow. So you don't have to make a decision tomorrow, right? Unless there's something urgent that obviously your oncologist or your doctor, that need you to make a decision at that time. But overall, you make the right decision for you, because what typically is not discussed is these long-term side effects. I will forever have lymphedema unless a miraculous miracle happens, right? Where I'm swollen, right? My arm is swollen, jackets I can't even wear. I have to wear sleeves and I have a pump because the fluid is conjugated in areas because of my lymph nodes being removed, right? I would forever have to deal with that. I will forever have to, unless I graft skin from my stomach and build breasts again, I will forever have to deal with prosthesis, right? For the rest of my life. I will always have to get specialty clothes. If I want to go swim, I just can't go and swim, right? I will ever have to go get a swim form and get specialty clothes to be able to still do the things I enjoy. I don't say that with a violin playing in the background because I'm sad, but I'm just saying that that's a reality. And so as you're making these decisions, make sure they are informed decisions, so then you won't have this shock at the end when you realize, oh snap, I'm alive, but now I'm miserable, right? Because I didn't realize these 5 things that had to be altered in my life as a result of my treatment.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important, because I think that's another aspect that people don't always consider, and I think that your organization is helping bring to light those real conversations. This is the reality. This is the real day to day that we face, and that support is so integral. Do you have any last messages to women out there, or men who are currently experiencing a diagnosis, who are navigating this, who are in those trenches? Anything that you'd like to share, especially from, working during your experience and pursuing your MBA and caring for your family? You wear so many different hats, and I feel like you lend a lot of inspiration to a lot of people. But is there anything you'd like to say to those people out there?
I would say, do what's best for you. I often, find people trying to either mimic or take the advice of others. It's amazing the advice you get from people who haven't been through it. But I would say do what's right for you. I know it sounds simple, it's not anything deep, if you need to take a week off, a month off, 2 months off, go do that. If you need your friends around every day bringing you soup because that makes you feel better, do that. If you want to go out on a vacation because you just need a break, go do that too, right? If you want to tell your doctors, okay, look, this radiation is too much, right? I need to take a break, go do that. My point of what I'm trying to say is you be active. Just don't what I want to say, just go through the motions. You be active in your care, your decisions, your life. And don't be ashamed of that. Don't be ashamed and feel like you got to tell everybody what's going on in your life. And don't be ashamed if you feel like you want to tell everybody. What I'm trying to say is just do what's best for you while you're going through your treatment. And I find that people fare much differently or much better when they do that versus trying to, I don't know, do what they think is the right thing as they're dealing with their illness. And main thing, I have to throw this in here, just pray. Don't lose your faith. If you're up another day, you're still living. There's still another opportunity. And yeah, I know it's tough. I know you have those days. Yes, you will have those thoughts, right? The key is just don't live in them. Don't stay there, right? You have to fight them with positive thoughts, right? For me, it was scripture, right? And that helped me get up the next day and keep fighting. And I'll say this, they told my husband and I we could not have children. And I'll never forget, this was at the heels of me finishing all my chemo and all this other stuff. We went to the mountains. I'm feeling nauseated, and I'm thinking it's the medication, the residue from that. And lo and behold, we had baby Isaiah, and he came out just as healthy. You probably hear him in the background. So, see, life, you can't give up, right? Nobody has the exact answer but God. So, stay positive, right? Be around positive people.